welcome everybody to the Big Dudes in the Trenches podcast. This is episode 153. Heading out of the second week of college football and out of the first week of NFL action.
Dude, I
This
don't
is,
know if I have ever seen this crazy of 1 week of football in my life.
I know. Everything about this weekend was insane for multiple reasons that we're going to talk about in entirety. You will notice Bug's not with us. He's not going to be with us for the next 2 weeks, actually. Work schedule issues. But you know what? We're still the BDT, and we still got plenty of NFL and college news and games and stuff to be talking about.
So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right on into it.
I'm right there with you. What do you got?
All right, starting with the NFL news here, or the NFL in general. As you may or may not know, I hope you do, but Monday Night Football is on. Denver is at Seattle. We are watching it live as we stream. You might be able to
Mhm.
see a peek of it behind me.
Hopefully
Uh,
not.
not too much. You can't. You can kind of see the TV, but not entirely. Um, we will be reacting to it. I can tell you right now, just watching the first quarter, Denver does not look good. They have what seems to be some massive offensive line issues. And frankly, Seattle looks like it hasn't missed a beat without Russ. Um, I don't know. This might be a another head turner from this weekend.
I mean, we liked Geno Smith when he came in relief of Russell Wilson last year,
Yep.
but also now he's had a whole offseason under his belt as kind of the QB1, I guess. I mean, Drew Lock apparently never really stood a chance.
Speaking of Denver and teams that look bad, I need to shout out the AFC South. They pulled off something that, frankly, I didn't even know was possible. Um, Not a single team in the NFC South or AFC South won a game this weekend, and two of them played against each other. That's right. The Titans lost, the Jaguars lost, and the Texans and Colts tied, which means the team we all have pegged for probably the number one overall pick is in a
Currently,
tie for first place in the AFC South. Welcome to football. I love everything about this.
it's still not as crazy as college football. That's the
No.
best part.
Hey, we'll get there later. Don't need to rush it. All right. Unfortunately, as with any football year, there were some injuries in week one, some significant ones. I'm just going to touch on a few of them, mostly the ones that are bigger names here with major injuries. For instance, TJ Watt out of Pittsburgh has a partially torn pectoral. It is a better diagnosis than initially expected. However, they don't know when he's going to return to the field. Another major injury this year is Elijah Mitchell. He's been a fantasy favorite for many of owners for the last year and this year. He is going to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a sprained MCL, which is a real shame because, frankly, in that first drive out of Chicago, he looked real good. And then Dak, on the opposite end, was not looking good and said, you know what, I'm just going to take a few weeks off. And by a few weeks, I mean he fractured his thumb, went in for surgery, and he is going to miss a good amount of time. We are not sure on that full timetable yet. I would expect about that 6 to 8 week time frame again, but
Yeah,
you
that's what
don't
I
know.
saw initially, but they hadn't done X-rays yet. I don't think so.
Well, X-rays or not, they he had surgery this morning. It was successful. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like when I saw 6 to 8 weeks, that was like the sideline medical evaluation. I think
yeah.
so. I mean, crazy they got it probably right.
I mean, what's crazy is Jerry Jones told reporters after the game that Dak was going to need surgery. Either way, that is brutal. And then with the type of injury that it is, so if this is my right hand, it's kind of down up in this area, right where the thumb meets the palm. Um, the tough part with that is you don't know what you're getting back from that quarterback, even if they come back at that initial timetable, because that strength in that hand's not going to be there. The grip strength is going to be the concern, not long term, but at least for an additional, I'd say about 4 weeks after that, after the recovery.
Good thing he's not a good quarterback to begin with. Am I right, Cowboys haters?
But you know who is good? I got a couple players who are good. Their teams recognize it and they got paid. Doug, you will appreciate this because I remember you talking about him coming out of Notre Dame as an offensive guard prospect a few years back. But Quentin Nelson finally got paid off his rookie deal. Quentin Nelson and the Colts agreed to a 4-year extension for $80 million with $60 million guaranteed. This matters because he is now the highest paid offensive guard in NFL history.
Yeah, he's also one of the best guards in NFL history, so it checks.
He is worth every cent that they paid him.
He might be the second best player on that team. So, yeah.
Darren Waller also got paid. Not record setting payday like Quentin Nelson got, but the Raiders have recognized his talent as one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL and have agreed to Darren Waller on a 3-year contract extension worth $51 million. Not a bad payday for him either.
Yeah, I think the guaranteed money is really low on this. I know Darren Waller is a little bit older, so it makes sense. But yeah, I don't see any reason why he won't be there for another 3 years, you know?
And then finally, we have another player who could have gotten paid, but said, no, I want more of that bag. I want it guaranteed. Lamar Jackson reportedly declined a $290 million offer from the Ravens. Would have been a 6-year extension, I believe, with 133 guaranteed. They did not come to terms on that. He wants more guaranteed. I get it. The issue is he's looking more in that Deshaun Watson contract of fully guaranteed, and the Ravens don't want to commit to that, which I also understand. This payday would have put him in the range of Patty Mahomes and Kyler Murray on average annual value. But either way, it doesn't matter. He did not sign it, and they have now officially passed his deadline for contract extension. The season has started. He will not talk to the Ravens, supposedly, until the end of this year. Which, again, I said this last week. I'll say it again. I like the focus on the season, but I'm also not a fool, and I know his agent is working backdoor conversations with the Ravens. Even if it's against Lamar's wishes, that's what his agent wants because that's how the agent gets paid.
I have a crazy theory that may sound like a joke. If you've listened to a few of our recent episodes, I've been making jokes about everybody going to the Dolphins, but it is possible that Lamar Jackson just wants to be in Miami. Now, I would also say I agree with him that this contract is not good enough compared to the current quarterback market. Lamar Jackson has won an MVP award. Kyler Murray has not. Lamar Jackson has won you at least one playoff game. Kyler Murray has not. Why are you offering him the same money as a dude who had to be told to study film? Because Lamar Jackson has gotten better in every aspect of his game since he's been in the league.
So now
It's,
the caveat I'm gonna throw there is you're bringing up Kyler Murray as if that's the only comparison. This is also Patty Mahomes' money. He has done all of those things and more.
yeah, but that contract was signed long enough ago that it's not the benchmark for the position anymore. As crazy as that is,
I love that we're 3 years into a 10-year, $500 million contract, and we go, that doesn't count anymore."
it that's the way the market works. When Deshaun Watson got that guaranteed money, I mean, everybody's going to have to do something.
Now, I will give you some empirical evidence as to what you're saying about Lamar going to Miami potentially being true. Behind Baltimore, Miami has the second highest odds for a Lamar Jackson landing spot if he hits free agency.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes complete sense. I mean, Tua is still a question mark, right? And
Though I think he put
gosh,
some of those question marks away this week. Not a fantastic game, but a solid game. That being said, Russell
that being
Wilson said,
said, 220 mil guaranteed to Lamar Jackson erases some of those question marks.
but it raises others. Russell
True.
Wilson has decided that he's tired of the Broncos looking like trash and just threw a touchdown pass to Jerry Judy. I heard it Heard it in the
To Jerry
background.
Jones, get him
No,
involved in
Jerry
the game.
Judy. All right. I said it was a wild week of football, and before we get into our reviews, I do got to say, what is going on with these kickers, man? You know, some of them I will give a pass to. Any kickers in the Chicago game, that was a monsoon. Not judging you on two missed kicks.
No, it was a slip and slide.
That was at the end of the game.
Exactly.
For Evan McPherson missing two kicks, one was blocked and one was with an emergency long snapper. All right, man, I'll
Which
give you the pass on
matters.
that.
Right.
But discounting those, we have 11 missed kicks, excluding Monday Night Football in week one. Dude, what is going on?
I don't know, but I also don't want to hear the college kickers bullshit ever again. This
You,
is
you're
every kicker.
you're gonna hear this every week.
NFL kickers suck too.
100%.
That's what
You
we learned.
you know who doesn't suck as a kicker?
Justin Reed.
Justin Reed. Look, Bug was joking about this weekend, but there is some legitimate thought that maybe the Chiefs just cut Harrison Bucker and stick with Justin Reed. That frees up another roster spot. You've got a good safety, a solid kicker in one player. That's a win.
Back in the olden days, there used to be kickers playing other positions all the time.
Yeah, I remember Sid
Uh,
Luckman punting.
yeah. And George Blanda was a kicker as well. I mean, all sorts of nonsense. Let's bring back leather helmets while we're at it. Why not?
But let us get into our games. I'm down with it. I don't think the Health and Safety Committee would be down with it, but I am down with it. But let's get into our games. Oh, and here we are.
Yeah. So we didn't pick primetime Thursday night because we were live during Thursday night. Also, we can't tell you how Monday night has ended because it's live right now. So all we can really talk about here for our picks would be Sunday night game, which, yeah, did not
I
look good for the Cowboys.
I would argue it didn't look good for the Buccaneers either.
I would argue that it doesn't matter because it's week one and Tom Brady almost never looks good week one, and Bug was right to pick the Cowboys for that reason. And yet the Cowboys look worse.
So so here's my thing. I'm not worried about Tom Brady looking good. I'm worried about the the free pass Micah Parsons had into that backfield the entire game. Now I understand. Kid's a generational talent,
Right.
outstanding elite edge rusher. I get it. But there are some serious question marks on that Buccaneers offensive line, and they were not answered in the slightest.
I mean, fair, but also like it's Micah Parsons. So, and they won. So,
I mean, you're right. They won. They had 4 field goals, 1 missed field goal, and 1 touchdown. Uh, wow.
looking like Iowa out there.
What a game.
Can
No,
you imagine this Iowa Hawkeyes team with Tom Brady though?
oh.
Golly.
Now I will say this. I will say this. The Buccaneers defense this year already looked much better than it did last year, so that gives you some reason for hope. I'm worried about that offensive line, and again, yeah, Tom Brady's Tom Brady, but Tom Brady is also 45, and if he gets hit too much, I don't care how much he drops out and protects himself. Somebody's going to land one at some point this year, and that can go very, very poorly.
Well, we were watching this game and you said it. He looks 45 now for the first time ever.
Dude, there are things I want to say, but I cannot on the air. So I'm not going to. We're just going to move on to our next set of games here.
That checks. Yeah, so Joe Flacco did not win his revenge game.
Nor did Baker Mayfield.
Right.
No,
But yeah, the Vikings dominated. So interesting.
I will say it took the Ravens a bit to get going. They did not show up until the second half, but once they turned it on, they turned it on.
Yeah. I will also say I didn't get to see any of that game. Do we know how the rookies did? Because there were some question marks with that draft class, so, from some NFL executives anyway. There's a lot of boomer bust prospects there, like Kyle Hamilton.
I have
No.
not gone back and looked at stats. I know there were some decent um, interceptions. I don't know who got them. That went on both sides of the ball. Sauce did not get them. Um, but yeah, I would need to go back and look at the exact stats to break it down.
Also, I know for a fact that Jair Alexander did not get any of those because, oh my gosh, it looks like he didn't show up to the field.
Did the Packers not know that Justin Jefferson still plays for Minnesota?
I don't think they were aware, but I
I
think
mean,
they know now.
other than Aaron Rodgers looking like typical week one Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson completely forgetting how to catch his first NFL touchdown, um, nothing else went right for the Packers. Uh, and it's weird that I said, hey, Aaron Rodgers was standard and your rookie dropped a pass as the things that went right. Like, Jair Alexander was. So here's my issue. Jair Alexander did not follow Justin Jefferson around the field. He was not
Right?
manned up and given that assignment. I think he covered him once or twice throughout the game, and well, Justin Jefferson made him look like a fool both times.
One of the
Like,
greatest tweets of all time about this game. Jair Alexander posted a selfie before the game started. He's in the zone. Guy replied, "Maybe you should have been in man."
that's amazing. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of question marks here, but people who are reporting that the Vikings were going to have a new offense that was more centered around passing, less around the run game, they definitely
Here,
showed
yeah,
more of a balance. And those high-low concepts they were running, Justin Jefferson got on after, and I think the post-game interview was like, I was surprised at how much field was in front of me. Like, he would
yeah,
catch the ball and there would
and
just be nobody there, and he'd be like, is this a scrimmage? Like,
week one looking real good for my Justin Jefferson Offensive Player of the Year pick. Let's keep it up. But also, yeah, the 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 Browns Panthers was a lot closer than it had any right to be, and yet
the
it
Browns
ended
broke the
on
curse.
technically a rookie record.
The Browns broke the curse.
Resulted in the first ever tweet that they were 1-0 in franchise history. Because last time they were 1-0, Twitter did not exist.
I love it. But to bring up what you were saying, um, the rookie record. Now, this is one of those weirdly, oddly specific records, but it does exist
Yes.
because we know it now because somebody tweeted
Yes.
it out. Therefore, it is true. Cade York hits the longest field goal for a rookie kicker in week one in NFL history. And
In
that sealed the
his
game.
team's home opener in week one in NFL history.
Oh,
It got even
Jesus.
more specific.
God damn. Either way, 58 yards is nothing to scoff at. That's what
Right.
this kick was
Right.
from. That's a remarkable kick for any kicker, honestly. Anything when you're nearing 60, you have my respect. Uh Honestly, both quarterbacks looked okay. Both running backs looked great. Um, I think Carolina's going to be better than we gave them credit for. I think Cleveland's going to be able to hold out a little bit longer than we thought they would, but only time will tell.
I picked the Browns though, so suck it.
Congrats.
Also, the picks did not go well for like most anything else. I think we're all no. Me and you are 3-1 at the moment. Bug is 2-2,
And to
but
hold on, and to refresh everyone's mind, we are all riding on the same pick
yes,
here, and it might not go
yes.
well.
Geno Smith is making that look very questionable. Those neons must be doing something for him. These neon green jerseys also really disgust me.
Yes.
Um, but they're a thing that exists, and that's yep.
All right. Hey, man, if you're cool with it, I'm going to hit us real quick on our starts and sits of the week.
Yeah, go for it. I have nothing to add here. I'm gonna be honest though.
Sweet. All right. So we, as a podcast, told you to sit Robert Woods, and boy, I cannot high five Bug enough for this pick. He told you to sit Robert Woods, and if you sat him, you are a happy person. Came into the Came into the matchup projected for 11 points. He left the matchup with 1.8 points on fantasy. That is in half PPR scoring. So 2.3 if you go full PPR scoring. That being said,
Everyone
he's
full
not the wide
PP.
receiver one. They want to feed Treylon Burks. Maybe that changes here, but they definitely want to feed Treylon Burks here moving forward.
I mean, maybe it should change. Ooh, losing to the Giants.
That's more on the defense than on the offense, though.
It's on everyone.
All right. Our start of the week for wide receiver was scary Terry McLaurin, and it was a solid start. Carson Wentz actually looked really good in week one. That's something I haven't been able to say since about his rookie year in Philadelphia.
313 yards, 4 touchdowns. No picks.
And Terry came out and performed to his projection. So if you were counting on him in a slot spot, you are a happy person again.
Oh, wait,
Came
2
in with
picks. My bad.
came came in with
There's
12
Carson Wentz.
finished the game with 12.8 fantasy points, half PPR scoring, and 12.6 was the projection. Hey, if you meet your projection in fantasy football, that's a solid game.
I know, because the projections are always like stupid high for some reason for like everybody all the time. Fantasy is weird.
And moving on down to our running backs, our sit of the week was Damian Harris, and I got to say, I like this one. He was a semi productive on the ground, didn't really do much in the passing game. Finished the game with 6.8 points out of 9.3 projected, so about 67%. Not the best sit, but also when you're getting single digits out of your running back, that's not what you want to see.
Right.
That's a win to sit him down. On the other hand, Kenny Gainwell nearly doubled his projection in his start of the week for us here. Now, the big thing to note is Kenny Gainwell is in a 3 running back committee here, and you're banking on touchdowns for him to be fantasy relevant. That being said, all of the Eagles running backs scored a touchdown, so they were all fantasy relevant.
Nice.
Came in with 5.5 projected, left with 10.2 on the fantasy score line. That's a win. And when you're putting him in and you're getting double-digit points out of Kenny Gainwell, that's probably an emergency start, and you are happy you're getting that.
Yeah, and that means fantasy forecast is 4-0 so far this year, which is incredible.
I love it, man. I love it. All right, I'm going to hand it over to you to take care of our NCAA news.
Okay. All right. This is a lot of pressure. Yeah, so we have a new top 25. Very much looking forward to this one because reasons. Uh, if you watched games this weekend, you will know
Something about the
several of
Fun
those
Belt.
reasons. So yeah, we do have a new number 1. That is Georgia. According to all 3 of
But
us here at BDT, Georgia
how
should have
can
been number 1
Alabama
all along.
But how can Alabama drop after a win?
They didn't drop. They're the new number 0, which is a special designation specifically invented this week by the AP poll for Alabama because they're permanently the best of all time forever.
I don't know if that's how number 0 counts, but I'm down with it. I'll support
No,
you.
Alabama's number 2. Ohio State's still number 3. The team up north is number 4, and number 5 is still Clemson. I guess there's kind of nothing you can do with the team up north and with Clemson, seeing as how they played practically scrimmages this week. Looking at you, Furman.
Hey. That team up north finally has a quarterback, though.
That is true. They did name JJ McCarthy as their actual full-time starter. I already hate that we're talking about this, so I say we should move on.
All right, hold on. Let me just say one thing.
Okay.
I don't understand why this was even a doubt in Jim Harbaugh's mind. Cade McNamara made it very abundantly clear through 2 games who the starter should be. And JJ McCarthy outperformed him in just about every possible metric.
Sounds like somebody's coach's favorite, and it's not JJ McCarthy.
Facts.
I think we're going to talk about Quinn Ewers a little bit more in a little bit here, but we have to go ahead and say up top, he is out 4 to 6 weeks with a clavicle sprain. Never heard of a clavicle sprain before.
I gotta say they are extremely lucky because everything
Yes,
on that play looks like that was a broken collarbone.
yes. Which, yeah. Um, we'll talk a lot more about that in a minute, but let's go ahead and wrap up some other news first. Mark Stoops is now the winningest head coach in Kentucky football history. They are officially a football school. And also, Mark Stoops just passed Bear Bryant on total wins at Kentucky. That is crazy.
Sorry, I was just
Congratulations.
high fiving myself for being the only one to pick Kentucky in that matchup. Spoiler, but
Yeah.
chalk one up for the good guys.
Okay. I thought we were all Americans here.
No, I don't think any of us have been All American ever.
The Sun Belt is a thing that happened
No,
this week.
no. The Sun Belt has officially been renamed by us here at BDT the Fun Belt.
This might be what you may call Blood Week. Um, yeah, App State beat a top 10 team.
High
Marshall beat
five.
a top 10 team.
High five.
Georgia Southern got a coach fired.
Honestly, anybody from Georgia State, including Clay Helton, can go to Nebraska, and I think everybody over there will be high fiving them.
I just can't believe that after that performance against North Carolina, App State was able to defense a win out of there at
No,
Kyle
no.
Field.
They were able to defense a win by offense.
Um, Texas A&M was held to under 100 yards rushing, which is not Texas A&M.
They had 18 minutes of the ball. App
Still,
State held the ball for 3 quarters.
still.
That's why I said App State offensed their way to a defensive win.
I mean, yeah, it was unreal. Also, yeah, Marshall beating Notre Dame is insane. I don't even know what to think about that right now. Marcus Freeman is the first Notre Dame coach to ever start his tenure at Notre Dame, 0-3. And
This
also,
the makings of
I really wish I would have picked Stephen Gilmore as my prospect to watch this week. Wow, looks just like his brother.
this Notre Dame game very much looks like a team that sat back on itself after they claimed the moral victory. We held
Yeah,
Ohio State to only an 11-point win. Let's high five
yep.
ourselves and take the week off against Marshall. And now you're sitting at 0-2. You can't take weeks off in college football. Notre Dame, I'm sorry, you blew your chance at the playoffs. I can't. I can't even talk about it. Like they are that bad.
I mean, it's very possible, not likely at all. It is possible that Notre Dame turns this around and starts beating teams by like 50 plus every single week for the next 10 weeks.
If their two losses, if their two losses were to Alabama and Ohio State, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? They got a shot. Losing to Marshall being your second loss, dude, I don't see it. Even if they do come around and start whooping teams, I
Maybe
can't see it.
maybe Marshall Sunbelt champs this year. And remember, Ohio State won the national championship after a loss to Virginia Tech earlier in the season when they went 6-6. So
I just
shit happens. But we did say Georgia Southern cost a coach his job. That coach in question would, of course, be Scott Frost. Yeah, Nebraska started chanting about how he should be fired, which I kind of feel bad for him about because that is his alma mater and he won a national championship there as a player. Also, yeah,
you need
it
to
was time for him to go for sure.
Okay, so we talked about this with the 1972 Dolphins of how many one-score games can you win? The question then became for the Cornhuskers is how many one-score games can you lose? You go up with
Apparently, all of them.
I was going to say you go up with less than 10 minutes to go or less than 1 minute to go.
Right.
You score fantastic, you're up. And your defense can't hold Georgia Southern. Like we can say it's the offense all day.
Yep.
This was also Nebraska's first loss in Lincoln after scoring more than 35 points. Something is broken.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things are broken apparently, um, including Nebraska's hiring practices? Question mark.
Not anymore. They fixed that.
Mickey Joseph, the new interim head coach, is the first ever African American head coach at Nebraska for any sport ever. Uh, can't wait for him to get replaced by Urban Meyer, the whitest dude of all time.
I don't know. I think this weekend he might be able to solidify his job as the permanent head coach.
I
Nebraska
mean,
loves Nebraska
true,
loves their alma mater, guys, and he is
true.
fired up for this game.
That is a fact, and this is one of the biggest weeks in his life. If he can beat Oklahoma, dear Lord, look out.
Here, you're
Um,
an interim coach. Your job interview starts now.
how about this weekend?
You kidding me? They're watching his practices,
Well,
his
of course.
preparation.
So I said it was blood week. 3 games doesn't make a blood week. We also had to have some FCS over FBS wins, which we definitely had. Holy Cross beat Buffalo, for example. Incarnate Word looks insane. They scored 55 points on Nevada, which, like, Nevada's not great, but at the same time, is Incarnate Word actually, like, pretty good? That might be a thing still, even after losing their coach and quarterback. Uh, we also had, like, Kansas over West Virginia this week. um,
They're a football
that's a
school now
thing
too.
now. Yeah, apparently Lance Leopold is like working some magic. Not gonna lie, that is insane. I don't think Kansas has ever been this successful, like, out of nowhere. The last time they were in the top 25, it felt like they took a couple of years to build up, and it was like, well, you can kind of see the groundswell. This has just been immediate, out of nowhere. The same guys they had last year when they were losing all the time, but they beat Texas, and now they're just 2-0 for some reason and alone atop the Big 12.
Yep.
Hate to keep referencing great tweets that I saw. This all this episode has been so far, but I did see this West Virginia guy say, the real joke is Kansas is actually fantastic, and we're going to go 8-4 still.
Jesus.
Oh man, what a week of college football! So I think it's time to get into our games that we had previewed. We of course have our ranked versus ranked matchups, and the games that we selected to talk about. But before we do that, I think we ought to bring in our guest this episode. He is the leader of the Tide World Order. It's a blog site, it's also a great Twitter account. Not only that, he's also the leader of the Clutch Sports Network, which is incredible. Need to follow that on Twitter. He also contributes to Saturday Blitz for Fansided, which is one of my favorite off-season websites. So this dude hits all of the check marks. Also, he's like a great person, apparently. Um, he has this organization that helps orphans. Like, dude, how amazing can one man get? Alabama fan and great sports writer. Can't believe we have him on the show. Welcome, Mr. Rick Morton.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Fantastic.
Man, doing great. I have been looking forward to coming on with you. I mean, crud, like I was all set to come on and then had a kidney stone, right? So
Unreal.
talk about awful timing. So I'm glad to say that I'm healthy and ready to go. And first weekend of college football, like what in the world, man? I heard you guys heard a little bit on the run up while I was sitting in the green room, and what's going on this week?
I don't know, but I love every second of it. I think that's the only way to answer that.
As an Alabama fan, I felt like crap at about probably 2 o'clock or so. And then
Understandable.
but man, my day got so much better after that. Um, because I looked around and I'm going, well, we could be A&M, we could be Notre Dame, we could be, we could be Florida, we could be, it just the list goes on. And what an incredibly weird kind of week one of college football. So, feeling pretty good about things right now.
Yeah, I've been saying that the entire weekend. It has been nuts in college football, but and I gotta say, I'll lead with this, man. I'm glad to see that you and every other Alabama fan that I know of has recovered from the heart attacks that had happened in that game. But what were your initial impressions, at least as the game was going on? What went right? What really plagued the Tide
Oh
in this game?
gosh. I mean, first of all, I think it was super optimistic to think that this was going to be, the Tide was going to have what was the spread, 20 or 21 going into the game.
I saw 21.
Yeah,
Yeah, that just
way
didn't seem very
too much.
realistic to me,
Right.
especially because Sark really knows. He's had the inside track, and quite frankly, Texas had the opportunity to spend pretty much the offseason game planning for Alabama, and so I wasn't surprised that they threw some stuff at us. Our big question marks I still think are on offense. The defense played terrible, and I think they would be the first ones to tell you that. They were undisciplined. I think they let the environment get in their heads. I mean, when in the
A
world do
lot
you
of
ever
a lot of
expect it?
emotional penalties out of the defense, I would say.
Yeah. Like when do you expect you're going to see Will Anderson have three offsides calls, right?
Right.
Like it's
Right.
just, I mean, and so I think at this point, I think you can look at what happened on the defensive side of the ball and just chalk that up to being an anomaly. I think they'll get it right. I think the guys that they have and the leadership they have on the defensive side of the ball will ultimately rule the day. I think the concern really is on the offense, and they showed probably the thing that nobody's talking about, or at least there's not been a lot. I've even as I've been looking around today and looking at some of the other writers and people that cover Alabama, nobody's talking about the offensive line, and I think we came out scared to death of our offensive line after the spring game, and we all tried to make ourselves feel better about it by kind of whistling in the dark and saying, "Hey, we had guys out. It's a patchwork. We're bringing in Tyler Steen from from Vandy, or
Mhm.
from like that they're all of these excuses and all of these things, but the truth is." Our offensive line just played bad. And I think the to me the microcosm of the whole game, you could boil it down to the 4th and 1 play toward the end of the ball game, and to see that basically we double teamed Texas their nose guard, and he took on two guys and flattened them. And anytime, I mean, if we've got 700 pounds of man up against 300 pound, 350 pounds of man, and we can't hold the line in that, something's wrong, and something's majorly wrong. And so I think it remains to be seen. I mean, obviously we have new coaching in that area. It's kind of a complete turnover from where we've been in the past. But if, as an Alabama fan, I am extremely uneasy, because I think our run game, we really have gone into the year expecting that Jameer Gibbs would be a huge shot in the arm. We've expected that getting McClellan back is going to be a big deal, and that we were going to be able to run the ball this year better than we did last year. But we're not going to be able to run it anywhere if we can't get the offensive line play back together. Um, the other piece of it is just the big question marks at receiver, and I think what we didn't see Saturday is, and some of this is because just because of the offensive line play and the lack of protection, but it doesn't look like right now that we have anybody that can take the top off the defense, and
Right.
with JoJo Earl hurt. And the fact that the one guy that we have that's kind of the burner is not being in there, it doesn't really look like anybody else is poised to step in and take that role.
So this is something I've noticed with Alabama just in the past 2, 3 years. They've really been stockpiling high level transfers
Hmm.
at a rate that is unparalleled at any other college in the sport. And I feel like a lot of the times it's trying to cover up recruiting misses. So,
Hmm.
like Jameer Gibbs, like all the wide receivers they've had to bring in the past few years, there hasn't been a Devontae Smith come naturally like there was
Yeah.
when Devontae Smith came. So it's just meal kind of working the receiving core together, which scares me for Alabama as well. I'm just curious, what do you think about how Alabama's been handling?
I think our guest just had a just glitched out. Hold on, I'm sure he'll be back in a minute.
I was building towards an interesting question too.
Yep, he's back.
Man, like I don't know what happened. The internet just glitched. I think Nick Saban must have unplugged my modem right in the middle of that question. You know, I think I think you're onto something. I mean, and I don't know that that's because I think a lot of people want to chalk that up to um, Saban's age. They want to chalk it up to to his inability to recruit. I
Oh,
really
I
think it.
will I will never doubt his ability to
Yeah,
recruit.
That's
yeah. Yeah, we don't either, and but I think the fact is that I mean with the environment we're in right now with NIL, the fact that with the transfer portal and kind of the wild west that we find out there in college football, um, Alabama has to be different, and I think
Right.
one of the things that gives me a lot of hope as an Alabama fan is there's not been a time yet where Nick Saban's been so far behind the curve that he hasn't been able to catch up and outpace the people around him, and that's going to happen for me to feel for me to feel negatively about where we are, and so
Yeah.
I think he'll figure it out. I think we're behind in NIL. I mean, I think we our state legislature passed a law pretty early on here that I think they thought was going to be protective and they thought was going to be good for the universities here in state. It actually turned out to be a terrible law and really set us behind. And so there's been a lot of work going on in state to rectify the legal situation. Alabama's now, out there with, and there's a group of boosters that are out there with a collective, and so those things are beginning to happen. But I'm really interested to see how much Coach Saban's actually able to be influential in the next couple of years in trying to bring some shape around what's going on, within this whole landscape because the arms race is doing nothing but getting worse, and I think you can kind of say part and parcel that the problem is Alabama's not been able to bring talent in and develop them, and it's hit or miss. I mean, sometimes it's going to be you're going to have that Jamison Williams come in and that guy
Right.
just fit and gel and be a cultural fit and it's going to be okay. I
You're
think we're
welcome, by
seeing
the
the
way.
exact opposite right now with Tyler Harrell. Right? Tyler Harrell can. I mean, he can play ball like we all know, but yet
Mhm.
he's nowhere on the depth chart, and the only reason for that has to be that he's struggling to be a cultural fit, and he's just it's great guy, wrong place. Now that I mean, who knows? He may be on the field this week, and that may all change, but the one thing we know about Nick Saban is if a guy's not fitting in, he's not doing the right thing, he's not going to see the field.
I just want to
Hundred
say you're
percent.
welcome for Jamison Williams. Those-
I
we still
thank
claim
you
him though.
really. If yeah, I know I that it's and you guys, I mean Joe Burrow too. You guys take them all. And they
Absolutely.
all got
Damn
their
right.
start here.
I think you all start claiming your guys too. I think that's kind of actually an important point. It's not that you haven't been able to recruit. It's not that you don't develop talent. It's that once guys are second on the depth chart, they want to leave and go start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's a whole problem with the transfer rules and NIL that I don't think anyone can handle, and
Yeah.
it's not just an Alabama problem. So
Well, and we're not sending them to the thing that's interesting about that is it's not like we're sending guys to to Georgia. That we don't have
right,
players that are that are finding their way to Ohio State, and so it at some point you got to figure that that's going to start to balance out a little bit, and some guys are going to start to figure out maybe if I stay home. I think the perfect example this year is Drew Sanders. Um, Drew Sanders would be playing and he'd be getting a lot of reps at this point at linebacker, but he chose to punch out because it looked like the linebacker room was too loaded, and the reality is that we could probably use him and are going to be able to see the need for the gap that he's left before the end of the year.
So I have one more question about the Texas game this past weekend. And Doug, I know you were saying it earlier, emotions played into it. But what sticks out to me, and you even alluded to it here, Rick, was for me, it was the penalties.
Yeah.
15 of them. That's the most in the Nick Saban era. So since 2007. So we're talking 15 Iron Bowls, 7 or 8 of them at Auburn. The emotions never got to them then. What was it about this Texas game that the Tide lost their discipline? Like, that is a stat that I'm a Miami fan, so I've been following Nick Saban since that '06 season, and it's that's just something you never see with him. So what was the difference in this game that forced the penalties?
So again, I don't like I'm it sounds like I'm lining up to be that guy that's trying to throw cold water on Nick Saban. But I mean, I couldn't love a coach more, and I couldn't believe in a coach more than I do our coach. I think I look back into last year, and I don't think this was an isolated incident. You look back at the Iron Bowl last year. We got out by the skin of our teeth in a game that we should have won handily, and ended up having to go into overtime and fight. And it was because our guys didn't play well on the road. They didn't handle the environment well. You go back and look at the Florida game last year and look at the performance in the Swamp. That game was a whole lot closer than anybody thought it would be, and really where you chalk it up is not necessarily the things Florida did on the field as much as the fact that Alabama just didn't handle the environment very well. And so, I think you can kind of try to explain those things away as being isolated incidents, and you can point to different parts of the squad as being those things where the breakdowns happen. But from a mental discipline standpoint, there's something going on, and they're not handling those environments of adversity in ways that Saban teams have in the past.
that's actually a really interesting point about the environment. I know that was a record crowd at Darrell K. Royal,
Mhm.
and Texas A&M has a bigger stadium than Bryant Denny.
Right.
If it is large enough crowds with big enough crowd noise, maybe that is a factor now.
Well, and at some point, I think also you kind of get the loss of continuity in coordinators, and all of that stuff sort
Right.
of starts to come into play. And I think those are the finer points of the places where it begins to break down. I think they'll get it together. I think this team is going to be okay. I think we're going to be there at the end of the year. I
Right.
don't really see anything on the schedule that really frightens me. Until we get to the SEC championship game, I think we're going to line up against Georgia again. And the fact is, the way things are projected, maybe we see them twice this year. But who knows at this point? We're trying to be cautiously optimistic at this point, but I would hate to be Louisiana Monroe this weekend. That's all I can tell you.
That's fair.
Um, because
I don't know, man. Arkansas is coming for you though. This
well, I have a buddy that we kind of have this ritual. We text all the way through the games, and it's funny. Like even when we're sitting next to each other in the stadium, we text each other. We won't talk to each other. And and it's kind of like wearing your favorite T-shirt. Like you get that winning stink on the T-shirt, and then
Right.
it's that
Yep.
shirt until you lose again, right? So this is like we do the texting thing, and we were going back and forth, and something we've said for years is I really like cranky Nick Saban. I like it when
Yes.
we win, and yet he's really just kind of nasty. And he was a little cantankerous going in at halftime. He was really disgusted by the time the game was over, and he was that flustered, kind of throw his hands up in the air. I don't know what to do with these guys, kind of Nick Saban. I That's going to translate to what they hear in the film room. It's going to translate to what they hear on the practice field this week. Dad is definitely going to get their attention, and I think they'll get it straightened out.
Suffice to say, I would not want to be an Alabama football player this week.
No, sir.
Well, we do have some other games we want to talk about with you, if you're all right with that. I
Yeah,
know
sure.
you're a big college football fan, Alabama in particular, but college football is college football.
No
It's
doubt.
it's my second religion for sure. So if you want to pull up the slides, Tug, we did make some predictions for the ranked versus ranked matchups, and I think everybody was wrong about Baylor, but for
Wow.
realistic reasons. I mean, BYU was out both their receivers, both their top two receivers. It was at BYU though, which is always a concern and should have been. Yeah, I kind of expected more out of Dave Aranda in this one.
Yeah, it's just the thing about Dave Aranda that I think is interesting in the Big 12 and at Baylor in general is to have a defensive minded guy leading a Big 12 program because they don't stop anybody, and I think it that sort of looks like that's still the MO at Baylor, and that he really hasn't meaningfully been able to change the narrative there, and so I think he's a great coach, and obviously he was somebody that was a handful for us with every defense that he put forth at LSU, but I just don't know that it's not wrong situation, wrong culture, wrong context for a guy that just thinks about football differently than the entire conference around
Well, maybe he's the next head coach of Florida because that didn't go well in the swamp for the Gators. I
him.
expect that. I'm in Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky, and I
Yeah,
did not expect Kentucky to win this game because when's the last time Kentucky's gone into the swamp and won a game?
yeah.
The 70s. So wow, wow.
I
I
mean,
don't even know what else to say.
I I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you've got a quarterback who drinks mayonnaise in his coffee, right? Like
Yes,
there's something different going on in Kentucky than, but you know, I mean, Mark Stoops has done a great job at Kentucky, and I think he's really built something. He's done something there that nobody else has been able to do. Maybe since Bear Bryant. I mean, it
actually, literally, no one else has been
literally
able to do.
right.
Before we hopped on, we just said he's now the winningest head coach in Kentucky history.
Crazy. And
Yeah,
I think that they caught Florida. I mean, if you start thinking about all the things that were stacked up against Billy Napier in Florida, it's really not all that surprising. You've got Kentucky on one side that's got incredible continuity in their coaching staff. They're
right.
recruiting well. They've played well. They've been on the rise. Billy Napier comes in. They lose a slew of transfers, and then on top of that, they have what amounts to a short year to be able to get ready. And so I really like Billy Napier. I really liked him when he was here. And I think he's going to have a future at Florida. I'm not ready to send him down the road yet. Um, but I certainly think this is one of those things. I mean, we better enjoy it because at the end of the day, Florida's not going to stay there, and they're going to figure out a way, out of this hole, and probably not this year. but they're going to recruit well and give them a year or two, and they'll be back in it.
No, I was joking. I definitely have a lot of faith in Billy Napier. I love what he did at Louisiana.
Yeah,
So I think this is a slam dunk hire for Florida. Also, need to enjoy the other way around. I don't think Kentucky's going to be this good again
it's
for a very
true.
long time.
It's true.
The only other ranked matchup this week was Tennessee at Pitt, which was a fantastic game.
Yeah.
I watched every second of it and loved every second of it, even in overtime. I gotta say though, I'm starting to believe a little bit in this Tennessee offense. Uh, they were able to out offense an ACC team, which is not something you can say every week for the middle of the road SEC schools.
So I'm gonna tell you guys a quick joke. There was a guy who was a huge Tennessee fan, and he had a dog that he used to tell all of his buddies was a bigger Tennessee fan than he is. And so one day one of his buddies that worked with him said, "Hey, I don't believe your dog's a bigger Tennessee fan than you are." And so the guy said, "Well, come on over and watch the game with us, and you'll see." And so he gets to the guy's house, and there's the dog, and the dog's like got his orange and white checkered sweater on and the whole deal. And sure enough, he sits there and he watches this dog as the dog watches the game, and Tennessee recovers a fumble, and the dog is jumping around and barking and having a great time. Tennessee loses an interception, and the dog's like over there whimpering with his paws over his eyes, and just he's dying. And so this old dog sitting in front of the television, Tennessee pulls out a win by a point over Mercer, and the dog just goes nuts. He's like jumping up and chasing his tail and acting like a puppy. And so the guy's friend says, "Man, I thought you were crazy, but that dog has to be the biggest Tennessee fan that I've ever seen." He said, "But I've got one question for you." He said, "Sure." He says, "What does that dog do when Tennessee beats Alabama?" The guy said, "I don't know, because the dog's only 15 years old." So what I would say to that, guys, is I think it's good for college football for Tennessee to be good. I think Josh Heupel is great, and I think he's bringing their program back right into the middle of the SEC. I'm an Alabama fan, born of Alabama people that grew up in Tennessee, and so I hate Tennessee.
Well,
And
you'll fit right in with the
so
show. You're welcome back anytime.
but I'm going to tell you, I like college football would be better with a good Tennessee, but I'm really comfortable seeing that dog become about 25 years old. So, I mean, all joking aside, I think Josh Heupel he's getting the right kind of recruits. They're beginning to they plugged the holes that have kind of plagued them for a while, and it doesn't look like a circus there anymore, and they're gonna be good. If Alabama has the same kind of game that they had against Texas, against Tennessee, we'll get run out of the stadium. And so
There's a thought. Ooh.
yeah. I'm just trusting we're going to be a little better in a few weeks.
I trust that too. Seeing
All
how
right.
Nick Saban reacted.
Before we press on, we do have a question from Twitter. Painted Broncos or Twitch. I'm sorry. Painted Broncos asking, can Western Michigan beat Pitt off for the second straight season, with Pitt coming off the loss to Tennessee and Western Michigan coming off a conference win at Ball State? Do you guys see the upset?
No.
No.
No. Here's the thing. I still think Pitt is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I think Saturday. I mean, Tennessee. It's not like Pitt didn't stumble. Tennessee won the ball game, but Pitt's a great ball club, and they're going to be fine. And there's no way they're losing that game. No way.
I mean, I still kind of can't believe they won the backyard brawl. So everything's possible, I guess.
All right, we'll move us on to our next matchups.
Yeah, so we kind of already talked about Alabama, Texas. We all picked Alabama, but we did say it was going to be closer than the spread, and it was a lot closer than the spread. It was actually as close as possible. Um, yeah, what a game. So I said we would talk about the Quinn Ewers injury later when we were talking about just general college news. I guess now's a good time to do that. Do you think the game would have turned out differently if Quinn Ewers had played the whole time? Or did you actually like what you saw out of Hudson Card?
Uh, you know, I, I really don't know that it would have been that different. I mean, I think Texas fans, this is, I mean, it was, again, the text messages that were flying around during the game, it was Colt McCoy 2.0. And so I think, Texas fans, I think, would love to believe that he would have given them a better game. I think actually Alabama had, to the degree that they could be prepared, they were prepared for Ewers. And so I think it was a bit of a strategic advantage that they had to go out and had to face a quarterback that they really had no idea what to expect from.
That's fair. Able to handle both in the end, I guess. At least
Yeah.
enough. We also did want to highlight UTSA at Army, one of the better Group of Five matchups this week, in our opinion. Did end up going overtime. UTSA's second straight overtime game. Houston's second straight overtime game as well. That Houston UTSA game last week was insane. But
Mm-hmm.
crazy stat out of Army. Um, Apparently, they are the most efficient passing team in all of the FBS right now. Which, yeah, they
What?
have they have the highest completion percentage and the best touchdown to interception ratio and the most yards per completion. If you like add all those stats together, the best passing team in college football right now is Army. Um, which I don't think that's ever happened in the history of college football. But
My
here we
what
are.
stands?
The UTSA did win. It was overtime and it was fantastic. And I am very glad I got to watch the entire thing. But then we also did highlight big rivalry game this week, and Matt Campbell got the monkey off his back.
Mm.
Did win a Cyhawk for the first time, and possibly the last time because he's very much now connected to the Nebraska job.
Yeah. I,
I would love to see Matt Campbell still have to play Iowa every year.
yeah, I'm buying Iowa State. I think Campbell's a great coach, and they put together a solid program, and it kind of they felt for so many years now like they've been right on the precipice of something bigger, and
Right.
and kind of they get that one win a year, 2 wins a year that nobody sees coming. They kind of against all odds they're able to they're able to get in there and scrap and get a victory. And so, pretty cool opportunity for them to be able to start off with a win, and to beat their big rival, and as you said, probably to launch their coach right into his next job. So
I loved every second of college football this week, but we only highlighted 6 games last episode. So I guess that's all we have to talk about here. Before we send you on your way, though, thank you so much for joining us, Rick. And we do have another segment on our show that you might very well be interested in. So if
okay,
you want to hang out for bracket time, I think we ought to talk about this. We are in the process of narrowing down the best stadium in all the Power Five. Not
wow,
only that, we have added 5 more to the Power Five. Of course, we had to include Notre Dame Stadium in there. But
right,
then we also took Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU, since they will be five very soon. And we figure by the time we do a whole bracket for every group of five school, they'll probably be in the Big 12 already. So we have narrowed it down this entire off season, all the way down to we're at our semifinal round this week, and we have 4 insane matchups that we would love you to take a look at.
yeah, let's do it.
So these polls are going to go out on Twitter as we are live as well. I'll send them out as I'm reading them, or at least try to. And Tug, if you want to send the slides. So first up, we have Kyle Field versus the LA Memorial Coliseum. Are we sure about this? I think this is old slide. That should have been hidden for you. We're supposed to have Florida State and Alabama. Good sir.
That's interesting because it shows hidden. I'm running into difficulties with it, so I'm gonna back it out for now,
Fair enough.
and we can just read down them.
All right. So we do have Florida State and Alabama as the first matchup. Docas Campbell versus Bryant Denny. Two very iconic stadiums in college football, gotta say. And I'm sure I know which way you're voting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, you know, next to church, Bryant Denny is probably the closest place to God's heart as far as I know. So I'm gonna have to go with Bryant Denny there.
Fair enough. Next up, we do have Mississippi State's Davis Wade Stadium up against the Rose Bowl. Actually, probably going to be a lot closer on Twitter than it sounds like up top, because the Rose Bowl has been getting us some very close matchups. Those pillars are only as beautiful as the eye of the beholder, I guess. Davis Wade is a pretty unique stadium, but certainly looks pretty awesome. And you know,
Having been to Davis Wade, I've not been to the Rose Bowl. I'll go off of the friends that went out there in 2009, for the national championship game, and the thing that I hear the most about the Rose Bowl are how bad the sight lines are. That it's such a flat stadium, and you really, like, if you're up in the upper rows, you're so far away from the action that you pretty much have to phone it in. And so Davis Wade's a great environment, and they, State packs that place out, and you have those freaking cowbells ringing all around your head all the time, and so it makes it a pretty nasty place to go and play. Plus, my wife's a Mississippi State fan, so I'm going to have to pick Davis Wade because she might see my Twitter at some point.
Third matchup of the week, we do have the LA Memorial Coliseum did beat Kyle Field last week, is how I remembered that matchup. And we have it going up against Neyland Stadium in the semifinal here. Wow.
I hate to do this, guys, but I'm gonna go with Neyland Stadium. And the game day atmosphere in Knoxville is really fantastic. I mean, they do, the Vol Navy, the whole thing is really cool. And I have spent some of the worst moments of my life in Neyland Stadium, thanks to 101, 2,000, however many it'll hold now. So I can say from back in the day that used to be one of the most raucous places to go, and was just and especially when they in the Big House in Michigan were a couple of the bigger stadiums in the country, and one of a few that held over 100,000 people at that point.
Yeah. We've had our struggles moving Neyland along ourselves, but we've kind of had to. So understandable. And our last matchup of the week will be the Ohio State University up against the Swamp. Actually, the third largest stadium in the country. No, we were just talking about stadium is over 100,000, but then also against the Swamp. So, yeah.
Wow. Like, how do you, it's like one degree of hell to another, I think, for an Alabama fan. I mean, I think, the Swamp obviously is known for just the raucous atmosphere and the game day atmosphere, but like how in the world do you pick against Ohio State here? I think the Horseshoe is just it's an iconic stadium and one of those places that just screams college football.
I love your answer. And with that, you are welcome back anytime you want. Once again, just gotta say, you're the greatest guest we've ever had on the show. Thank you so much. No, but
I don't
seriously,
know how
thank
to
you.
take that. I feel like I just got a couple of answers right, and all of a sudden I'm vaulted to the head of the class. So,
Well, that's how it works sometimes.
there you
Well,
go.
you're nailing it. This
Love
is
it.
an
I
interview
love it.
right now. You weren't aware. This-
So, Rick, I've got your votes recorded for us, but like we said, those are going to be up on Twitter. Maybe I'm overstepping my bounds here, but I know the guys and I would greatly appreciate it if you could help us get some of those tweets out there and get some
Absolutely.
more votes on them. Because these are some brutal matchups all the way across.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we are going to break it down if they come to ties.
I
Well,
know. I'd much rather it not be a tie ever.
I'll be more than happy to use whatever influence I have to get some more people to come in and jump in and be part of it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. I really do appreciate you joining us.
Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity to be on, and hope you have a great rest of the college football season. And holler anytime. Love what you guys are doing, and it's been fun.
And just to send you off here, OH.
He's still an Alabama fan, man.
Man, look, the band director in my high school dotted the I, and so I feel like I've heard that for an inordinately long part of my life, and so no thank you. I'm gonna stick with Roll Tide.
Fair enough.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.
Have a good night,
Rick.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that was one of the greatest conversations we've ever had on the show.
Do you want me to say it? Because if I don't, you are.
Io. Beat you
No.
to it.
No. Man, what a great podcast.
Absolutely. We nailed this one, dude. Perfect. I don't really have much else to add here. I know we didn't really talk about the prospects to watch. I will hit that next time, but we wanted to keep it down to about an hour 15, which we've just hit right now. So nailed it. But if we have any links to shout out, I'll hand it over to you, Tug. I know we're going to throw them in the description, but if we want to shout anything in particular,
I will shout it out, but I'm also going to give a game update. It is currently 17-13 Seattle. The Broncos are driving. You've got 4 minutes left in the third. I'm currently up by 1 point in my fantasy matchup. And I'm facing both Rashad Penny and Melvin Gordon. It is not looking good, but overall the game is good.
it's looking like you're in for a rough Monday Night Football.
Hey, I will take 3 fantasy victories and 1 loss any day of the week.
I mean,
Just
fair.
sucks that this is my money league.
The fact that you're in 4 leagues and doing as well as you are is pretty impressive. Not gonna lie.
Well, part of that's thanks to you, man. You drafted one of my teams.
Very true. You're welcome.
All right, but we do have some links. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I love everybody who watches this show with us. But what I need you to do to make our YouTube link so very much easier is go onto YouTube, hit subscribe, turn off the bell right now. Like just hit subscribe. I need the subscribers. So the YouTube one will definitely be in the description below, but I will not shout it out because I will be here for 5 minutes reading it. The rest of our links, we have patreon.com/BDTfootball, twitter.com/BDTfootball, facebook.com/BDTfootball, instagram.com/BDT_football, BDTfootball.com, our email mailbox at BDTfootball.com. And then, of course, if you're watching us live, you have our Twitch, twitch.tv/BDTfootball. I'm sorry, twitch.tv/Big Dudes in the Trenches, all one word.
Yes.
I almost confused myself.
Just think PDT football. You can find us almost anywhere. If you're having trouble, look in the podcast description. That'll help you out.
And if you're still having trouble, just hit us up on our email.
True. True.
And do you have any last parting shots, Doug, before I take us out of here?
I really don't think so, other than OH.
IO.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have on the show today. Thank you for watching or listening. And just remember, you can't win a game if you can't win in the train.